Back when I started this hobby in 3rd edition, you could see a Space Marine Rhino or Land Raider from across the room, and you knew which faction it belonged to. Not just because the color it was painted, but because of all the cool icons and flair that people added to their vehicles. Now, the Repulsor, Impulsor, and Gladiator, they're all cool vehicles, but they don't really have any of this. Now, Forge World, they used to make these cool kits where you could upgrade your Rhinos or Land Raiders, but those don't really exist anymore. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to make some space, and we're going to add some icons of our own. Let's start off by looking at the Impulsor model itself. Keep in mind this will also work with the Gladiator and the Repulsor. As we look around the model, we can see there's small areas to add chapter insignias, but overall there aren't too many flat areas to add anything substantial. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to actually flatten out this front area right here. By doing that, we're going to have a nice flat surface where you can put big decals, those Forge World emblems, or even like freehanding something if that's your jam. For this project, you're going to need a sharp hobby knife. You're also going to need some sandpaper. I'll tell you which grits I'm using in the video, but you're going to need a wide variety. Next up, you're going to need some milliput. I use the superfine white, but any will do, as long as it's not green stuff. Next up, you're going to need to have something you're going to put on the vehicle. I'm using this Forge World Rhino kit, but you could also use decals. These ones are also from Forge World, and they have some really cool options. And last, but most importantly, you need an Impulsor, a Gladiator, or a Repulsor to actually do this. It's best if it's already taken apart, but you can do this with it fully assembled. It's just going to have to be a little bit more careful with your sanding. Okay guys, first step in this project, we have to get rid of a few things. So grab your hobby knife and we're going to shave off everything that's circled in red. So these bolts and that Aquila. Like I said, grab your hobby knife and shave these things off. Just make sure you don't gouge the plastic. If you leave a little extra, that's fine. We'll sand it off on the next step. Next up, grab your sandpaper and we're going to sand these areas smooth. I started with 400 grit and I worked my way eventually up to 3000 grit, which made it just as smooth as all the plastic around it. Next up, you're going to grab way too much milliput, way more than you actually need, as is tradition, and then you're going to make sure you mix it really well. Again, we're using milliput, not green stuff, because green stuff does not sand well at all. Okay guys, it's time to grab that milliput and fill in that gap. Now you're going to want to overfill it just a little bit. If you underfill it, you're going to have a divot, but if you overfill it, you can just sand it back down. But keep in mind, I said overfill it just a little bit. Now in this video, I overfill it way too much, and you're going to see that come back to bite me whenever I sand the model down. You'll also notice I bust out some color shapers to help poke it and push it into the little corners. If you don't have fat fingers like me, you may not need these. After giving it a day to dry, it should look something like this. I know, it looks horrendous, but after we sand it down, it should look a lot better. Okay guys, it's time to start sanding. I'm using this little Forge World sprue as a sanding block, but you can use anything that's flat as a sanding block. Go ahead and wrap your sandpaper around it and get sanding. Now like I said, I really overfilled this thing with milliput, so I was in sanding hell for like 2 hours. As long as you don't do this, it should take you about 10 minutes. Again, work your way up through the sandpaper, eventually getting up to that 3000 grit, and it's going to be as smooth as the plastic around it. Now that the part's been sanded smoothly, it should look really nice. Go ahead and wipe off any excess dust and place it on the model. Now you're going to notice when we put the top portion on, it doesn't exactly fit correctly. This is because we filled in a little portion of it with Milliput. Now I'm going to mark this area with a pencil, and I'm going to show you how we're going to fix it in the next step. So the areas marked with pencil is usually where the top sits, but we filled that area with Milliput. Instead of messing with the nice smooth Milliput that we already put in, we're just going to go ahead and shave a little portion off of the top. Once again, grab your hobby knife and we're going to go ahead and trim these portions off the top. Now take your time with this. Every few times I shave a little bit off, I go ahead and I put it back on the model to test fit and see if the gap has gotten smaller. I did this about 3 or 4 times until the gap was completely gone, and then we were good to go. Now, if your impulsor, repulsor, or gladiator is already put together, you don't have to worry about this, but this is only for people who are doing this before it's fully built. Now for the emblem that I'm going to put on the vehicle. I'm using this Forge World Rhino upgrade kit, and I'm going to use this hobby saw to carve it out. Now, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, this hobby saw kind of sucks. If I did this again, I'd probably use my Dremel, or I would just use the hobby knife the whole way through. I wanted to try this out, and it was a little bit lackluster. It worked, but honestly, just use your hobby knife or a Dremel, or if you have one of these and it works, go ahead and use that. Just whatever works best for you to carve this thing out. Just be careful because it is resin and you could crack it if you apply too much force. Once it's all carved out, this is what it's going to look like. Last step before the emblem can go on the vehicle, we have to sand it flat. It is a little thick and uneven on the back, so just lay it on a flat piece of sandpaper and just sand it until it's the desired thickness. Now our impulsor has a nice big flat surface. You can go ahead and put a big decal on it. Like I said, you could freehand something on it, or what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put this Forge World emblem on it. I'm going to go ahead and just super glue this on, adjust it a little bit, make it as straight as possible, and in the next clip I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's all primed up. Okay guys, the impulsor's all primed up. I hope this video showed you Space Marine players a couple different ways to customize your vehicles. Now I know some of these Forge World parts can be expensive or hard to find, but if you check places like eBay, you can commonly find them for pretty cheap. In fact, I got 2 of these front logos on eBay for about $5. And since I have a spare one, if you're a Salamanders player, go ahead, comment down below and I'll choose one of you guys at random and send this out to you for your vehicle. Again, if this video helped you, please like and subscribe. And always, thank you for your time and take care.